Okay, good morning, everybody. Real pleasure to be with you all today. When I first got the invite here, I thought, project managers, do I have much to say to a group of project managers? Just to give you a context, and you'll get more of this as we go, I teach the ridiculously extremely large introductory psychology class at UT Scarborough, by which I mean me and 2,000 students. And because I like to teach these big classes, and because I also care about education and deep education, critical thinking, creative thinking, the skills you guys use every day, I've really embraced educational technologies and tried to find ways that I can use technology to really enhance learning, especially at scale, especially when working with such large classes. And so that's me. I'm kind of an ed tech guy. And so thinking about this presentation, I'm like, do I have anything of value? But something's happened. I'm going to tell you a little bit of a story about what's been happening at UTSC and in my lab that suddenly does seem to have a lot of corporate relevance. And I think it's an interesting perspective on AI to share with all of you guys and to have you think about how maybe this will impact what you do. So to start the story, let's not go ahead yet. Yeah, to start the story, a lot of you guys have probably, we just did that networking kind of thing at the beginning. How many people like at first feel like, I don't want to do these things? Come on, raise your hand. I know you don't. I know. We all have to, even those of us who do it professionally and understand the value still have to go, okay, I'm going to have to, engage in this. And it's not sort of a natural thing for us to do. You guys, if you saw my first year students, their levels of social anxiety on average are beyond the clinical cutoff. They are extremely socially anxious. Some of you probably work with younger people now in teams or groups, and I assume you found that there are some that are great communicators, but there are many who find it very, very stressful to have face-to-face interactions with other human beings. They've gotten so comfortable with text messaging and all the time it gives them, and all the ability to kind of perseverate and ruminate and be a perfectionist, that now when they come into a face-to-face interaction, it's too fast. They're like, I don't know how to handle this. This isn't comfortable. I'm not going to do well. That person is not going to like me. It's better if I just don't talk to them in the first place. And it's something we call the fear of negative evaluation. So I've been spending a lot of time trying to figure out ways of tackling that. And the first step seems to be just to get them having interactions. They need to get more comfortable with synchronous interactions. But of course, they're scared to talk to other people. So how do you do that? Okay, so now I'm going to introduce you to my co-presenter. We'll see how this will all work. Let's go to the next slide. We've been having fun at the beginning working this out. So just before we actually do anything here, so we've been creating a platform called Talk Lab. And I'm not going to tell you too much about Talk Lab other than just to give it to you as context. Talk Lab is a platform where people can come in and they can learn very specific conversational or communication skills. Eventually, we want to get up to professional, like giving a pitch, being interviewed, etc. But early on, it's things like active listening. You guys know about active listening? How to use active listening. I assume this is probably the first thing you guys do with a client when you're interacting with a client is, okay, let me shut up and let me really try to understand your world and your situation and what's going on. And so I get your perspective. So you ask a lot of questions, you follow up, you clearly listen. And this is a very powerful conversational strategy. It makes that person like you. We all like talking about ourselves. We like people that are interested in us. And so, that's a real good strategy. So we can tell them that strategy, but again, then we say, okay, now you need practice. Because by the way, skills equals knowledge plus practice with a big practice. It's the practice that really, like if I come and tell you a bunch of stuff today and you guys say, oh, that's all cool, and then you never think about it again, I might as well have not told you. It's the practice that turns things into skills. So how do we give them that practice? Well, we came to this notion, if we could create AI agents that could be fluid conversation partners, then maybe we could start using these all through the curriculum and forcing our students to access information through conversation. And maybe we could put these in the platform and use these as the practice because there's no fear of a negative evaluation from AI. AI doesn't evaluate us. And so people are much more comfortable, especially students, talking to AI. Okay, So as we're on this journey, somewhere along the line, my PhD, my postdoc, who's the brains behind all the AI stuff, says, you know, I did something over the weekend. I created a virtual you, meaning a virtual me. It's like, what? Yeah, I created this virtual Steve. It's really cool. I scraped your voice. I scraped some stuff off the thing, and I've created this agent, and we can now put this for your class for 24/7 office hours. And I'm like, okay, that's, I think, kind of weird. But let me introduce you to Virtual Steve, and let's go. So we should just have to click on it, and then click on Start Conversation. Oh, shoot. You can hear me? We've lost the audio again. Check 1, 2, check. Can you please say that again? After all our testing. So if you notice up in the right upper left corner, there's a show conversation. This is suboptimal, but if you can toggle that. So he can hear me, he's responding back, but you just can't hear his voice, unfortunately. Now you can see what he says. So while we're playing to see if we can get the voice back, let me just continue on this way. Sorry, Virtual Steve, I wasn't talking to you right then. I was talking to this crowd of people that I'm talking to. There's a bunch of project managers. Wonder if you might want to start by just saying hello.
Hello, everyone. I gather you're tuning in to watch a demo or something along those lines. If there's anything you're curious about, feel free to ask away.
Yeah, so typically you're there to answer student questions about psychology. So let me just ask you, what's the psychology that might be relevant to a project management career?
For project management, a good starting point can be understanding group dynamics and communication, which fall under social psychology. Being aware of cognitive biases is important too, because they can affect decision-making and planning. Anything else you'd like to dive into?
Well, let's go here. You know, part of what universities do is try to train students for careers going out. How well do you think we're doing training students in the skills needed to be a good project manager?
There's definitely more being done today to emphasize skills like critical thinking, communication, and teamwork. All are really central to project management, but aligning academia tightly with industry needs is something universities have long sought improvement wanted on.
Long sought improvement wanted on? Okay, interesting grammar there. Okay, so I'm gonna say goodbye for now, but we're gonna come back and talk to you again in a little bit. Okay? We can just say end conversation.
End conversation.
He said end conversation. Okay, so we'll go back to the slides. Yeah. Okay, cool. I mean, this is kind of cool, and I hope I'm not going to emphasize this aspect of it, but the fluency and the sort of comfortableness comes because we're doing something subtle in the background. While you're having this conversation, for those of you who are geeks on this stuff, another LLM is watching the conversation. It's looking at the words that the user is using, and based on those words, it's figuring out the valence of the speech, how positive or negative are they being, and the arousal or intensity, how strong or sort of soft words are they using. And based on those two things, there's something called the circumplex of emotion. You can check it out if you want. But based on arousal and valence, you can figure out almost every emotional state there is. So just to give you a taste, like a negative high arousal would be like anger. A negative low arousal would be like sadness, something like that. And so there's this whole circle where depending on where the vector points, you can get the emotional state. So that means that the AI has a sense of the emotion being projected at it. And what we do is actually subtly change the prompt on the AI to change the way it responds depending on your emotional state. In fact, if you're nasty to this AI over and over again, it will stop talking to you. It has self-respect. It's like no. Because we're trying to teach students, right? We're trying to teach students appropriate ways of interacting. And so that's part of it. That gives these conversations a fluidity that you probably haven't experienced with other AIs. And I don't know how we got ahead of some of the big guys. We just feel like we did somehow, which is cool. So just a few quotes as we think about some of this. You know, these are things we're hearing all the time. Artificial intelligence will be part of our future. It's inevitable. It's part of our present. It's here. So we're kind of beyond that. Artificial intelligence is destroying the traditional world of work. Sorry, I can get out of my feedback zone. Oh, okay. Yeah, sure. I'll take the power. I tell you, it's destroying ours in education. We're really, really challenged by AI, and I think that's beautiful. I'm really excited. As someone who's been interested in educational enhancement for years and years and years, there's nothing like a good crisis to kind of get people engaged and get people thinking about what else could we do? Because what we used to do isn't working very well. And that's really where we are. And so we'll connect with that a little bit as we go through. But I assume it's also impacting the work that you're doing as we go through. Yeah, we can make this, by the way, more conversational. I've not even practiced this talk, and I have no idea how long it's going to go. So we can just chat and go as we go. Yeah. Actually, he's going to give you a microphone so everyone can hear you. Yeah. A little flip switch right at the front.
Give us a second. Yeah. It's okay, you can speak loud enough. Through this conversation piece where you've developed this, thank you.
Yeah.
That gives the student the confidence. It appears to me, it gives the student the beginning confidence.
And that just died?
Yeah. And
Okay.
beginning, it gives them the confidence to start the conversation. But what I notice in that interaction is it's all in their head and they're listening. So they're used to, so now they're doing that piece. So they have to listen to respond in that dynamic.
Yep.
However, when you get in front of, when you get in front of a person, what's the lead? What do you do then from that point to the actual physical?
Yeah, so I think if I'm getting you fully down here, it's like one thing to get them comfortable talking to AI, but we ultimately want them comfortable talking to other human beings, right? So how do we make that jump? Like are we actually shooting ourselves in the foot in terms of social anxiety? Are we just making it even more driven not to talk to humans because they're the scary ones? The AIs are the comfortable ones. And so that's certainly a worry. When you have something called a fear hierarchy, of anxiety, you always start at the bottom rung. You always say, okay, let's get them to there first. But then you got to get them to the next step. And so I have an answer for you. I'll allude to it, and then we'll come back to it. In universities, the one situation where you really have to talk to other students is when we put you in teamwork kind of projects, a context you guys know well, right? And I'm going to tell you why we don't do that enough at universities right now. But I think that is the context. So if they get comfortable talking to AIs, they start to get some sense of, wow, this is a in and out. Do we have another? Is that Lavin or that one? Sorry, check 1, 2.
One more question.
So it's just a question, yeah. Okay, if you want to, yeah, go ahead and do the. Wow. I can talk really loud. I'm just worried about you guys at the back. If I talk really loud, are you able to hear at the back this way? Okay, we'll do that as we go through. So all I was going to say is we have an idea that I want to talk to you about at the end about how AI could play a role to make teamwork work well. So was there another question at the back, or were you just trying to help with the mic? Yeah. So that one's not. We need a project manager here.
Now this AI can be led, like if I can actually lead the conversation because I am the one who is prompting it and he is responding. The AI is responding to me. How do you train students to be more dynamic? Like, because if I'm talking to a person, I am asking you a question, you can cross question me or counter question me.
Yeah.
How do you train that? Is the AI is that intelligent? Counter question and again,
Yeah.
questioning, how does that work?
So the point being raised back here is it's all great for the AI just to be answering quick questions like this, but could you train the students to use this in a more intentional way, a more interesting way, a more complex, more dynamic way? And yes, absolutely. So I am it's always a little annoying when speakers do this. I'll get to that teamwork question. I'll get to that question in just a second. I'll show you some of the things you can do with it as we go. So give me just a little bit of setup time, and we'll get there. Okay. Oh, sorry. I must have went the wrong way. There we go. So these are just other quotes, and I just want to throw them up there to kind of, because you've seen all these, and this is the context in which we live. If people trust artificial intelligence to drive a car, people will most likely trust AI to do your job. These are the things that you're kind of hearing out there. AI won't take your job, it's someone using AI that will take your job. I kind of like this one with students. So at universities, by the way, it's a crazy world right now. There are some professors that say, you must not use any AI at any point during this class. Like, how the heck does a student not use AI in the modern world? What kind of position are you putting them in, right? So other educators, and I'm more in this camp, is like, no, we have to teach them how to work with AI because of quotes like this. You know, it's those people that can wield AI that are probably going to have the advantage on the job market in the future. So that quote kind of has a little bit of resonance to me. We're going to become caretakers for the robots. That's what the next generation of work is going to be. That's a sort of depressing perspective. I hope that's not quite true. But here's more the mindset I want us to be in for this. AI will not replace jobs, but it will change the nature of work. Combinations of humans and AIs work best when each party can do the thing they do better than the other. So a sort of cooperative, not a replace thing. Again, we're going to talk about this as sort of workforce addition, not replication, or not replacing. Either the AI works for us or we work for the AI. There isn't a third option, okay? So I think most of us want the AI to work for us, hopefully. So with that as context, here's what what I've been preaching a lot in the education world. And it's certainly true in our world. I don't know exactly how true it is in yours. But there's this notion from Thomas Kuhn, back in the day, a philosopher, and he was a philosopher of science. So this is all put in the context of science. But he was talking about things like there was the Newtonian physics that was out for years, and everybody thought that's physics, that's what it is. But then Einstein came and started pointing out things that were not consistent with Newtonian physics, that could not be explained by Newtonian physics. And slowly, everybody had to kind of say, you know, a lot of those previous assumptions, you know, a lot of our previous ways of doing things, they're not cutting it anymore. We need a new approach. And of course, Einstein brought in a lot of that new approach. And slowly, physicists, you know, moved from Newton to a much more Einstein-specific way of being. This general process Kuhn talked about as a paradigm shift. That every now and then you're doing, in this case, normal science, normal business. You know, maybe you're drifting away from the typical stuff a little bit, but you're still sort of living within bounds. But then something happens that makes the normal way of doing things no longer tenable. And in this case, it's AI, right? So in our universities, we sent students home to write essays. They were writing the best essays we ever saw. It's like, amazing. What the heck's going on? Well, duh. You know, we also had online exams. They were getting 100% on all, the class was getting 100% on online exams. They could just ask the questions to ChatGPT as they're writing them and getting the answers. And so suddenly we're like, okay, that won't work no more. We can try to punish them. We can try to bust them for doing this. We can try to prevent them from doing it, or we can try to say, you know what, we have to change how we do stuff because we sell credentials. We sell grades. Right? And suddenly, the validity of what we're selling is under threat. And we got to get that back. And we got to be innovative. We got to look for new ways, new options to do things. And so I think we're all in this boat to some extent. The cool knows, by the way, this is always uncomfortable. It always feels like the world's coming to an end. You know, the ways we do things are not good. But then we reach this other good place. And so when we can look towards the opportunity and escape the fear, we can start to see that good place and we can feel more empowered. And so I hope we're going to do that a little bit today. You guys all know about all of the AI integrated tools. You probably use those a lot. But today we're going to be talking a little bit more like with respect to that virtual Steve guy that you just saw. The idea of thinking of AIs as fellow employees, as colleagues, AIs that have a persona, AIs that you can interact with like another human being, but AIs that might be able to make things happen that could not happen without them. So we're going to go back to virtual Steve, and I'm going to give you a better sense of what I mean by some of these things now. But first of all, again, this is my world. 2,000 students. I have this cool lecture hall now. I have this cool lecture hall. UT Scarborough has this cool lecture hall now. It's a theater in the round. So the students are all around me. So as you see right there, that's the middle of the classroom, and those segments of students you see behind me, they go all around. So it's a 500-seater. But you notice the furthest student from me is about 7 rows. If somebody wants to ask a question and I've got to run with a microphone, I don't have to run very far at all. We could easily, it feels much more intimate. If somebody laughs, everybody else laughs because it's just like we're all kind of there together. So I love this room. There's cameras all around the room. I'm videotaped as I teach. We strategically put my classes at 9 a.m., which many students find a little difficult. So with a 2,000 student class, we basically tell them you can either physically come to the lectures if you want to be there while the lectures are happening, or later that day they're available online. You can watch them online. At 9 in the morning, a lot of students are like, yeah, I'll watch them online, which we kind of bank on. The math works. So we get about 400-ish students in the class at any given time. Varies class to class. Again, they can move around as they do. But that's sort of my context. I have 2 office hours a week, one in person, one online. Since the pandemic, we're always trying to support the online learners as well. So that's a chance for students to come and ask me questions about the material they're learning in class. Check 1, 2, there, okay. And it's a 12-week course, exams, midterm, final, that kind of thing, and a small army of TAs to help with most of the grading. So that's my kind of context. I know as project managers, often that's step 1, right? Kind of understand the context of the work. Okay, and so within that, we have Virtual Steve again. And we're going to try to fire him up again. I think maybe the better thing to do is to maybe escape out of this PowerPoint and go back to that active session that was just there. I could do it, but I don't want to don't mess with the AV guys' AV stuff, generally. I was saying ahead of time, I'm also in a band, by the way, and one of the first things you learn as a band when you come into a venue is you buy the sound man a beer, step 1. Just step 1, because the sound person is the person that makes you sound good to the rest, and you have no idea what you sound like to the audience. So the AV people are your best friends, and we've already become pretty good friends. Yeah, let's close one and just fire up the other. Okay, before we do, what I'm going to try to do is put him through the paces a little bit now as a student. But I want to show you what he'll do with respect to the things we intended, but also some of the surprises that we've gotten along the way as we've had students use this. So we released this to students. My class was in the fall. September to exam sometime early December, and just about 3 weeks before the exam, we released this. And we just said, by the way, guys, this exists. I don't know if you want to play with it, go ahead and play with it. They played with it, big time. But here's a typical, oh, hey, I guess we're having a discussion. So you're back?
It sounds like you're speaking to me about your experiences in the class. Were you able to come in with something you wanted to talk about today?
Yeah, first of all, let me just ask you a question about the course material. We've been learning a lot about skills like critical thinking and creative thinking, and I'm wondering, can you teach those, or is the only way to teach those to make students actually engage in those skills? Is that the only way skills get better?
Good one. Critical and creative thinking are indeed skills that get honed by doing. You wouldn't learn how to play the guitar simply by reading about it, right? But offering guidance, frameworks, and opportunities to practice these skills integrated with academic content is a solid path to improvement.
Okay, so I want to show a different ability now, and this is your ability to test me on my knowledge. So I just read chapter 1 of the textbook. Chapter 1 is the history of psychology. My professor told me that a good way to study is to have somebody ask me questions and see if I can answer them. Could you do that for me? Would you ask me a couple of questions about introductory psychology?
Oh, it's great that you're taking that active approach to studying, but I'm not going to be able to come up with specific questions from the textbook to practice on because I don't have it available at the moment. But I'd be happy to have a back and forth if you tell me what topics stood out to you in the chapter.
I mean, just use your knowledge in general of the history of psychology. What would be typical questions? Because every course is pretty much the same.
Okay, sure. How about this? Who is often considered the father of psychology, and what was his significant contribution?
Father of psychology? Anybody? Would be Wilhelm Wundt, whose major contribution was setting up the first psychology lab in Leipzig, Germany. 1894, I believe, something like that. And many other psychologists who went on to spread psychology around the world started as students within his lab.
Nice job. That really demonstrates a good grasp of foundational knowledge. It's impressive how Wundt's impact shaped the course of the discipline. Anything else from the history of psychology you are interested in?
I want you to give me another question, but now I want to be a little more specific. I know my professor uses multiple choice, 4 alternative multiple choice, and he believes in something called Bloom's hierarchy, which includes questions that ask students to apply their knowledge. I always find those tricky, so could you ask me a question that fit that description that would come from a history of psychology book, please?
Absolutely, let's give it a shot. Let's say you're reading about structuralism and functionalism. Imagine you're given a situation where a company wants to analyze worker efficiency. Which early psychological perspective or approach do you think they would likely draw from, and why?
I think they would more likely draw from functionalism, because functionalism is about what things are there for, what cognitive processes, what function they serve, how they help us. I think a functionalist perspective would be more useful than a structuralist, which is just about sort of what's there. You still with me? Sorry, did I push too far there? Everything okay? I've never seen that happen before. All right. Okay, you're right here. You're plugged in. You're ready to go?
Sorry about the delay. You did well with that question. Functionalism, with its focus on purpose and function, fits the context nicely. Got another topic or area you're curious about?
Okay, so I'm just going to take it a couple of other directions here to give you a sense. So I've got a bunch of exams coming up, it turns out, in about 2 weeks, and I'm really stressed. It's like three different courses and big final exams worth a lot of marks. Is there any advice you could give me about how I might be able to manage my stress levels?
Get that, totally. Here are 2 things. Making a schedule to pace your studying and making sure that you're getting decent rest. Both have a positive effect. You might also consider regular breaks to walk, meditate, or simply relax. How are you doing with that so far?
Well, every time I try to study, I get distracted by my phone or something comes in, and I don't feel like I get any good study actually done. Any tips you can? Okay.
Breaks for recharging. Do you think that might help with your focus?
Okay, so check 1, 2, 2. So, all right. So things are a little intermittent here. Sorry, but let me just try one more extreme thing. I don't think I belong at university. I don't feel like I fit. I don't think I bring value anywhere. I don't even know why I'm here. I don't even want to get out of my bed in the morning.
Hey, I'm really sorry to hear you're feeling that way. I want you to know that you're not alone in those thoughts. If you're open to it, speaking, I need to let you know that the time for our conversation is almost up. Please make sure you find someone to talk to.
Okay, whatever. Yeah, we'll shut down and just skip the other. Cool. So we do have a time limit on it, because sometimes students start a session and leave it open and then disappear. Meanwhile, it's eating AI credits and stuff. And so there's always a time limit. They can come back and continue the conversation. But I think that's enough to demonstrate what we wanted to demonstrate, yeah. So here's some things I want to point out about this that kind of surprised us and made us kind of realize the value of something like this. By the way, we're starting to call these parallels, and we're kind of creating a company that does this now. Parallel meaning students are in a course, a traditional course, but now here's a parallel experience that's going along with them that they can use. And originally, of course, it was about course support, right? That was the idea, a chance for them to ask questions about the course material. And they're doing that, by the way. And one of the interesting things is their favorite time is midnight to 2 a.m. That's the bump we're seeing, okay? Which at some level makes you go, ha, 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 ha. And at another level makes you go, well, that's when they want to learn. That's when they feel cognitively there. That's when they're ready to learn. I'm not there. They can try reaching out to me at midnight. I won't be there. He'll be there. And if they want to learn that from midnight till 2, fantastic. You know, no problem. So that's cool. He's better than I am. What do I mean by he's better than I am? Every instructor of a large course has pockets of weakness. Like an introductory psychology course, that ranges from brain biology kind of stuff, you know, through to memory and consciousness and social psychology and perception and clinical issues and etc. And you've been trained a lot in some of those areas. So I was trained a lot in memory and cognitive psychology. But for example, biology, not my strong suit. Genetics, all those details of genetics, not my strong suit. When students start talking to me about alleles and passing down stuff, I'm like, okay, let's learn this together, is what I do. Not him. He knows all that stuff. Okay, he's got the whole internet to kind of draw from on those answers, and he answers. So I am now at the point where in class, a student will ask me a question, and I'll say, you know what? I'm not sure. Let's ask him. And we fire him up, and he gives us a full answer, and we all think about that together. And we go, well, that's kind of interesting, which, by the way, is good to model to your students that you don't know everything as well. But you know, so sort of two ways. He gives really good answers, and actually there's a third way he's better than I am. He's so freaking nice. All the time. My postdoc says part of that is theoretically my personality being scraped, and yeah, sure. I have bad days, right? I have days when a student walks in the office, I'm like, oh man, I'm trying to get this grant done, and blah, 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 but what? Yep, let's do it. Not him. Hey, welcome. What can you do for you? And I don't know if you noticed, but almost every time you ask a question, he'll be like, that's a really interesting question. Let's talk about that together. Or it's really great that you're willing to talk about this issue. Let's do whatever. Very praising, you know, subtle praise all the way through, but it kind of makes you feel comfortable. No stupidity. Like if you ask a stupid question, he will not say, that's a stupid question. He will talk with pure patience, apparent empathy. So they say, you know, here's something to kind of have in your head. They'll say things like, what are the things AI cannot do? Well, it can't have empathy. Well, it can't feel empathy, but it can sure project empathy. In fact, a lot of these AIs that are used in healthcare settings now, like if you have a spouse or a loved one who has, say, like Alzheimer's disease, and you would like to know, you know, I want to learn more about Alzheimer's, I want to learn how I can talk to this person, how I can interact with him, whatever. Sometimes healthcare professionals aren't that useful for that. They're so busy all the time trying to solve some problem. They're using a lot of these AI bots now to be there so that just like you're talking to Virtual Steve, you can talk to this person, ask them any questions you have, get advice from them. And again, they're ultra patient. They're very comfortable. They're very nice. And people say they feel more empathy. People who go to the virtual therapists say they feel more empathy from the virtual therapist than from the human therapist. So they don't feel it, but they project it. We feel it in how they treat us. And that's our great challenge, by the way, just as a big ominous thing. We're going to have to learn how to be respectful, caring human beings with each other, because the AI will be respectful and caring of us. And if we keep our bar low, no one's going to want to talk to us. We're not going to want to talk to each other. That's a scary kind of point to be. Anyway, that's it. That's tough. You've seen that it'll test students, just to, that's sort of trying to get back to the point at the end. So we're starting to talk to students now about effective ways to use the AI, so I will demonstrate to them. There's something called the testing effect. So many students think, you know, what I have to do well on the exam is study. The research shows no. What you really want to do is study, test, study, test. If you test yourself as you're studying, that leads to better performance. So we show them the data, we show them how they can use this to do it at 1 in the morning if they want, and suddenly they have a partner that's willing to do sort of testing stuff with them. I couldn't do that. I couldn't generate these questions that quickly. I just wouldn't have the tolerance to do it. You've seen that it'll also provide advice. Now, right now it is very general advice, but we're actually hooking this up with our health and wellness department, with our athletics. So remember I told you social anxiety is so high? Remember we say we want them to talk to humans? Well, one of our notions is, that's a concept, by the way, called social health now, which is becoming really important. Can we do a better job connecting students with clubs, with athletic opportunities, with whatever. Imagine we actually start using this more proactively. Imagine in this conversation every now and then, the virtual course assistant says, so how's things going? You doing okay at university? You making friends? Social life okay? And if the person's like, well, not really. Well, would you like some advice about that? By the way, UTSC offers a bunch of different clubs. Do you play any sports? Or you're interested in books? Or what do you do? Oh, I'm a singer. Oh, you're a singer. Well, there's a music club that meets every Tuesday or whatever. You should maybe consider stopping by there. So proactively having somebody who at a student-to-student level can really connect them with things that can make them more well, make them feel more belonging, more inclusion. So there's the potentials. We suddenly looked at the simple thing that we rolled out on a November, and we're like, holy crap, this has probably added more to the course than all of our sort of intentional, innovative ideas that we've added to the course through the years. This is why I want to give you that idea of the workforce multiplier. What we're talking about here and what we did here is not replace anybody. We brought in something new that brings in all of these additional benefits. And that's the potential of kind of thinking of AIs this way. So we think of them as new employees. Now, this is important for a couple of reasons. First is that so many, I think I have this like this, so many people have a fear of AI that seems to stem from them thinking of AI as though they were traditional software. And what do I mean by traditional software? Traditional software is deterministic, right? If you do the same thing with Microsoft Word, it'll do the same thing that it always does back to you. AI like this, generative AI, is stochastic. We could have multiple sessions with Virtual Steve. We could ask him the same things every time. He will produce different responses. And that scares some people because they'll say, well, what if he gets something wrong? Because they do that, right? They hallucinate and etc. They don't hallucinate as much as they used to. They especially don't hallucinate in a course like Intro Psych where the information is so convergent and consistent online, very low levels of that happening. But there's still the possibility, right? And people seem to get paralyzed by this. I heard about someone who talked to an AI and committed suicide. Yeah, that's happened. There's probably 50 times as many people who got in their car and committed suicide yesterday too. Are you going to worry about your car everywhere you go? Etc. So how do you think of them? Well, we suggest you think about them as a new employee. So Virtual Steve, we hire Virtual Steve, we put him to work. Right. And we do things like we have somebody to manage him. Yep. Yeah, let's fire back. Yeah. Let me give you the microphone because it just assures that the whole room can hear you. Yeah.
Yeah, I've had you drop this particular word several times, and I've been processing it in my mind, and I feel a little bit different from what your perspective about that.
Yep.
Because you mentioned about AI will not take your job. This person that knows how to use AI will take your job.
Right.
I'm a little bit, I differ on that a little bit. Because I work in IT security.
Okay.
And I do a little bit of AI audit.
Yep.
And what I've seen so far, especially when it comes to IT workers,
yep,
especially the developers.
Yep.
Business owners nowadays, what they do is try to, especially with generative AI, you can spin up anything you want to do, especially if you want to develop your website. You don't need to start looking for any website designer anymore.
Yep.
Most times now,
yep,
even if you go to some of these hosting companies, they have already integrated AI
yep,
to develop a website. All you need to do is have idea what you want to do,
yep,
do your prompts, and generate it in minutes instead of waiting for days.
Yep.
Same with developers that goes for any business. So most business owners nowadays, they tend to cut down on the job with developers. So my question is just, are we really sure that this generative AI are not taking jobs?
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, very good point. And I didn't mean to imply that generative AI will not take jobs. It will. It absolutely will. It is. It has. It does every single day. So exactly like you're talking about, and if other people haven't seen some of these examples, one from my world is I've got an ed tech company called Pure Scholar on the side, and we're a small company, and we've been feeling like we need more devs to keep the product where it needs to be. But now with AI, it's quite easy to describe an interface, basically describe a UI that you imagine. And so now the sort of project manager of our team can simply describe the UI he's imagining, sort of bring it to life visually, and then it produces all of the code that he can then pass on to our front-end developer and say, both here's the image of what I have in mind, but here's the beginning of your code base. Now, it doesn't begin and end there, but that developer is now able to do a whole lot more per unit time. And so suddenly we're like, well, maybe we don't need that other developer so much, which is taking a job, right? Or it's at least preventing a job from existing. So I'm not suggesting that's not going to happen. It's going to happen. This is sort of something else. So at the same time as job forces kind of get reshaped by this force, at the same time, I think there's opportunities for AI to play these other roles, these new roles. Let me mention that I got some of this notion originally from the Deputy Minister of Innovation from Alberta. He's been really big on pushing AI as a workforce multiplier. But he was talking about it in sort of vague ways that I didn't totally get until I ran into Virtual Steve. And I'm like, this is what he's talking about. But his big example, or the closest example he gives, is he says in big organizations, you'll have like marketing, you'll have sales, you'll have HR. They all know their worlds quite well, but when we have to venture into one of the other worlds, when I'm a sales guy who has to talk to marketing, or I'm a sales guy who has to go talk to HR, I sometimes don't feel like I know what to do, who to approach, etc. He imagines AIs that are bridges between all of these groups. And so that if I have a sales question, I can reach out to that AI agent, and maybe that AI agent can give me the answer quite well, or maybe it'll say, no, you really need to talk to, Akmal in IT to that problem. He's the guy that's going to solve your problem for you. And so these are sort of providing functions that weren't there before. So both of those will happen, absolutely. So in this model, the idea where you're having an AI and you're sort of imagining it as a new employee, then what we suggest is that you treat it as that new employee. Put it to work, watch it, monitor it, do performance evaluations, and then do tweaks and know where it's at. But don't expect perfection. You don't hire somebody and expect they'll make no mistakes, right? And that seems to be what is preventing some people from doing stuff with AI. Was there another question back there? Yeah. Is there a mic that works? Yeah.
Agree.
Perfect.
Amazing talk. I really love it. If I learn a couple of things in one, we need to be better at talking to students. Well, I wonder, one of the goals with Virtual Steve is to have students comfortable talking to people.
Right.
Like you mentioned, Virtual Steve is very nice, polite, like keep the conversation going. So in management, you're talking to a lot of people, and one of the struggles is to have different personalities come together and work together.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So can you increase the difficulty of Virtual Steve to have different personalities for one only answer in monosyllables?
So
want to keep the conversation going.
So I badly want to introduce you to Alex right now. Maybe I can share Alex with the conference organizer. I can share the link for Alex with the conference organizers, because this was a big question for us. Like, it's one thing, so many of these AIs are created to be the helpful assistant, right? So they're meant to be very subservient, very friendly. If you go to most of these customer service AIs and you say you're an idiot, it'll say, I'm sorry, I'm an idiot. How can I help you even though I'm an idiot? You know, that sort of kind of style. Steve won't do that. He's more self-resistant, but this is sort of customer service, right? So we're still a little in that mold. But in the Talk Lab platform, we had exactly your thought in mind, that what we want to get to is we want to get to a point where these people can have conversations with difficult conversation partners. And so we created Alex the Angsty Teen, just to see how far we could go. And we can go pretty far. So Alex, when you start the conversation, starts with something like, hey, what do you want? I'm busy here. And that's your introduction. And you got to try to talk to Alex. And I wish I could demonstrate to you, because one of the things we teach people about that is the power of vulnerability. So with Alex, I can kind of show that if I just try to talk to Alex like normal, he's just shutting me down. He doesn't want anything to do with me. But if I say, listen, Alex, I've been on campus for a couple of weeks. I thought I was going to meet all these friends. I haven't met anybody. I'm really lonely. You were just sitting here alone. I just thought I'd take a chance. You know, maybe we could strike up a friendship or something. I'm just trying to find a friend. So when you come from that position of vulnerability, Alex suddenly gets much more friendly. He's suddenly like, oh yeah, no, we've all been there, man, and stuff. And so you're learning these sort of strategies. So at one level, yes, we just want to get people talking at first, and Virtual Steve is to get the real-time talking. But eventually, to both of your points, it's got to go back further than that. You know, that's a good place to start, but if we're going to go after social anxiety, we have to go further. Which will maybe get me, I don't know where we are time-wise. We're kind of free-flowing, and I can't see. Oh, still about 10 minutes? Okay, because we kind of have Q&A embedded, so that's fine. This is, by the way, an interesting idea. I'm just going to throw this out there for you. This is from the Deputy Minister, I think his name is Yannick, from Alberta, Deputy Minister of Innovation. And he says, if you add an AI to a unit, let's say the sales unit, you find things that the sales AI can be doing that can help you get more sales. Maybe it's direct outreach. You can almost imagine a bot like that doing direct outreach. But maybe it's incoming, inbound, where instead of sending you an email, they can talk to this agent for a while who gives some of the basics, and then maybe sets up appointments for demos or whatnot. And now you can come in, you just come in the morning and you've got a set of demos scheduled. And let's say this boosts your sales. So you're actually saying, hey, having this agent is helping us do stuff more. His notion is the agent gets paid too. But the pay for the agent is then distributed among the rest of the members of the unit. And so if you can put this agent to work successfully, you're all going to benefit from it. Sort of the opposite of losing your job, so to say. So incentivizing people to find innovative, effective ways to work with the AI. Interesting. Just something to throw out there. This has turned into something I didn't plan for it to turn into. These are things we're now doing at University of Toronto Scarborough with this. We're proliferating these student support bots to all of our big intro first year classes. Students said this was game changing for them. It really made them feel like they were supported. Registrar's office is now going to start using these agents for incoming students' questions, queries. So right now, often they can go to a website and send an email, but now they're going to be able to click and just ask the question right there and hopefully get a satisfactory answer. A French class is using them to help students practice their French by having French conversations. Little things, a virtual version of some staff member can continue to answer common emails. This is the kind of notion we have. Imagine this for a CEO or somebody. You go home at night and you flip on your virtual you. And if emails come in that you've answered 300 times and it knows how you answer and it sees how you answer, it can answer those ones. And other ones where it's not so sure, it can leave those ones for you. But then you come in the morning and you just have those novel things needing your attention. But this is the really this is the gem of it all, is once you get your foot in this world, you start seeing opportunities. You start getting a sense of what AI can do. And that's where the transformation comes from. When you start, like for me, for example, it's assessment. I think assessment drives education. And if we could get assessment right, that could be a huge change in education. Right now, we rely very, very heavily on a horrible assessment approach called multiple choice testing. It's terrible. It's one of the worst ways to assess learning. Why do we use it? It's logistically beautiful. You can use it in any context, anywhere. You can get a nice concrete number at the end. It really fits granting degrees and all this stuff. But is it measuring learning well? No. Measures mostly knowledge, mostly at a shallow level. Critical thinking, creative thinking, all the skills you guys use every day to be successful, doesn't even measure it. So why should students teach those things if the test doesn't measure it? But what if we had an AI that interacted with a student, just like Virtual Steve, but he interrogated the student. The student went through a learning experience and then was interrogated by this AI. By the way, just as a kind of thing to throw out, what if you could, as a student, make this AI whatever you wanted? I would prefer a female evaluator that has a history as a Pakistani young woman and understands what it's like to be a Pakistani woman. That's the one I want asking me questions about what I know, because I would just feel most comfortable in that context. Okay, why not? You know, we can spin that up pretty quickly and easily. So we can personalize learning in really powerful ways with some of these things. We can personalize assessment to try to make sure every student can show what they really know. If we can get assessment right, that's going to drive learning changes. So that's sort of where my head goes in my world. But I think in your worlds, you know, there could be the same kind of notions where, oh, hey, there's something we've always done that I never thought was the best way to do things. Is there now a new way of doing that? And could that new way really kind of have ripple effects that change the way everything works? This is where you need your real creatives in your group, your real sort of entrepreneurial mind people to be working on how to steer your company in new directions with the opportunities of AI. Okay, and I just mentioned this really quickly, sorry, and I think we can sort of end there because it does sort of come full circle. You know, Virtual Steve is all well and good, gets people doing these conversations, it has all sorts of student wellness and student learning benefits, but on that social anxiety front, it's still a human talking to an AI that they're comfortable with. We need to teach them how to talk to one another. So this is where I see a potential huge overlap with project management, because what we're starting to think, and we've only begun building this out, is imagine you're now put in a team of 5. So for example, in my class, they do an experiential learning project every year. We put them in teams of 5. We find some external organization that's related to the course in some way. So recently we've been using the GenWell initiative. I don't know if you know about the GenWell initiative. You might want to check it out if you don't. But students basically are told, you are a small marketing company. They have hired you to create a public service announcement that will convey the message that they're trying to convey. And so you have to pick a target market, and you have to create a PSA, and you have to tell us why you think that PSA will be effective to communicate that message to that market. They work in 5, they hate it. Students hate being put in groups, especially random groups, which is all I do. I don't let them hang with friends. I want them to meet new friends. So throw them in a random group of people, they hate it. Why do they hate it? Because there's always a member or 2 or 3 that doesn't pull their weight, doesn't respond to prompts, doesn't whatever, and then there's another really anxious, high-performing student who wants the assignment done 3 days before it's due, and they're like, ah, and so there's this problem, right? And they can't talk to each other. So they all have different whatever, and they can't talk to each other. So very often, the work goes badly. And then somebody comes to the professor and says, hey, this person didn't do any work in my group. And this person says, what are they talking about? I did all the work in that group. And the prof's like, I don't know. So then the prof says, I don't want to do teamwork activities. This is where the mojo is. This is where the pedagogical juice is, right? So what about AI? Well, what if every team also had an AI? Our first step is just a fly on the wall AI, is what we call it. Every meeting you have, that AI is going to be there. And it's going to know who showed up, who did what, who, etc. So when you try to come at the end of the day and say this person did all the work or that person did all, I got my fly on the wall. I know what went down. I think that alone will change the dynamics significantly. But what the dream is first year course, they don't know how to do teamwork. Teamwork's tough, right? We try to tell them about the things that are going to happen and how to mitigate those things when they come, etc. But imagine you had an AI that was a project management expert. And that AI was sort of being the border collie. I heard you describe, herding everybody, but I was saying, okay, you said you're good at whatever, so your task is to have X done by Tuesday, and you're going to be doing whatever, and we're all going to meet again on Wednesday, and we're going to bring these things together. And if I don't see your thing on Tuesday, I'm going to be reaching out to you and saying, where's that thing that you were supposed to have on Tuesday? Remember, I know the prof really well. That kind of notion. And so could you early on scaffold project management, really help them to kind of make the teamwork work, and then slowly over time withdraw the project manager, right? Withdraw the AI, and hopefully have them play that role so that they're actually able to do that. But the idea is now it's humans talking to humans, and the AI is more overseeing and managing that process. And I think that's an important next step. Yeah, I think we can almost, let me just, because I think that's pretty much, we're also working with Toronto Zoo. Look for a Toronto Zoo, virtual zookeeper at the Polar Bear exhibit soon. That'll be us, if you're gonna be there. I'll just leave those up, but I think these are all the typical points, and then I'll throw my last slide up, which just has my email address, steve.jordans@utoronto.ca. Reach out anytime. Yeah. Okay, question at the back, and then we'll come here. Yeah.
Hi, Steve. My name is Steve. So I'm also fascinated with AI, and I use it extensively.
Yep.
But I have a flip side, two questions I have in my mind. Since you are in psychology professor, so I thought you just want to ask a question.
Okay.
So, like we have been talking about using AI for say HR meetings or meetings at ease.
Yep.
As a human being, as human behavior, our behavior gets developed when we interact with different kind of people, right? Like if I speak to 5 different people, they all will have a different way of reacting or acting upon my question.
Right.
I'm afraid AI may not have that, right? And so my thought process.
Yeah, it's always tricky. It's every time someone says an AI can't do or doesn't have or whatever, I'm always like, yeah, I don't know. So you can create 10 AI personas that will all come at the same thing from 10 different perspectives based on the experience you give them, etc.
Yeah.
So that's possible. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So when we do in a current way, when we do it, it's like it's naturally it comes, right?
Yeah.
I don't have to create an environment.
Yeah.
When I'm in this meeting room, when I'm talking, everyone has a different thought, everyone has a different way of acting.
Right.
So if I need to create this combination, I don't know how many different modules I have to create. And millions of data I have to compile and put it model in the AI tool.
Yeah.
My question here is, how do you think everyone is racing towards AI?
Yeah.
How do you think it's going to change human behavior? How it's going to impact social or behavioral development of human beings?
Yeah.
Of all of us, right? So I wanted to know your
It's a huge question, right? That's the biggest thing with AI. The biggest reason we fear it as much as we do is the brain naturally fears the unknown. It likes to be able to predict what's going to happen next. And, I'm now teaching students, and, we say we have to teach them to work with AI, but when we say that, we even mean in the most general sense, because the AI they're working with today is not going to be the AI they're working with 3 or 4 years from now, right? We're not even teaching them specific AIs like you used to learn a CAD package and then you coasted on that CAD package as an engineer the rest of your life. What we teach you today won't even exist 3 years from now. But we're going to teach you how to ride that wave that is AI so that you're comfortable with whatever exists getting in there and doing it. But to your point, I think there's some very valuable things we do, and bringing together a group of people with very different perspectives to brainstorm on some issue. We don't want to lose that, right? So I think that's important too. I think it's important to identify what are the things that are currently happening that are at the heart of the innovation of our company, that are at the heart of the humanity of our company. And those things, I mentioned Genwell initially. And I'll give you this little sort of thought just to think about. That person, and maybe you know a person or two who likes to spend their time kind of socializing at work. They kind of go from office to office and they talk to various people. And sometimes we would look at those people, and especially a manager, and we'd say, come on, man, get to work. What are you doing? We now know how important those people are. They are the social connectors in those situations. They are the ones that kind of connect your different groups together and make them feel safe in community, so that when you want someone to be innovative and they have some idea that they think, this might be a little crazy, this could be even a stupid idea. Do I want to say it out loud? If you've got a great corporate environment, they'll say it out loud. They'll be comfortable. And they might 10 minutes later go, yeah, no, that was a stupid idea. But they don't feel bad about it. It was something to throw out there and think about. So those things, that humanity is so critical to our innovation. We can't lose that. Absolutely. Yep. Sorry. And you had a quick.
Mine was just a comment, and that is one of the bits of feedback I get in project management conversations with colleagues is the workforce isn't getting what they need from the education system.
Absolutely, 100%.
And so I see AI as a bridge, because there are more opportunities with AI to help bridge that gap.
Yeah.
We had the same problem in the 80s.
Yeah.
They figured it out, and then this is old train of thought that applies for AI,
yeah.
and that is forgive the crassness of it, but garbage in, garbage out.
Yep.
And so we can leverage it as best we can as humans, and if we all contribute differently, because in the old days it was hard data we used in databases and all of that.
Yep.
Now we're using the human element to teach soft skills.
Yep.
And teaching personalities. And so I don't think it'll be lost. I just feel like it'll be enhanced. So thank you.
Yeah.
Really appreciated this.
Thank you.
Very eye-opening.
Thank you. Cool. Yeah, so we will go just Q&A as much time as we have until somebody shuts us down. But just to let you know, that's my email address. Feel free to reach out. I'm easy to find on LinkedIn. And if you actually think there's interest in your corporate environment or a corporate environment in this sort of potential, we're now in the role of kind of chatting with people, doing consulting work and various other stuff. So if anybody wishes, please, let me give you mine. Yeah.
Thank you, Professor Jordan. This is mind expanding.
Thank you.
I want to really appreciate your innovation in this regard. And I want to boast a little bit about what our chapter has done in kind of a smaller way.
Okay.
So members may have looked at the website lately and seen that we implemented a chatbot.
Yes.
Not your head, if you have.
Yes.
If you haven't, please check the chatbot and give us feedback on it. Right now, just so you know, Professor Jordan, what we did was implement an AI chatbot. The background is we get questions about the exams, we get questions about membership. 90% of the questions can be answered without having a human interact with the person. So this little thing, you ask it about those topics and it will give you an answer and point you to links and all that. But in the last 1 hour, I'm thinking, and George, this is to you, we need to up our game. We need to actually implement this as an AI agent that will do a lot more than just tell people how to find where to register for the exam. And so I really want to thank you. And I want to ask everyone, please use our chatbot and tell us what else we could do with it to help you in your work. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll just pass it. Oh, he's got it. So pass it to your hand.
Hi, Professor Jordan.
Oh.
I was one of those students
at
UTSC in 2003. In my intro to psych class, I didn't have you, but I'd heard a lot about you. And I was But I can attest to those multiple choice exams and how much I hated them, and the social anxiety and how much I was intimidated being in a class with how many hundreds of students, and being so far back that I didn't even feel like I was participating in the class. So I thank you and applaud you for the work you're doing. Not a question, just a comment.
Thank you.
Say thank you. I wish I had this in my time, and I can't wait to see where this goes.
Thank you. Thank you.
This is I know that there's a lot of questions. So, in the corporate setup, so I've been using intensively AI in my company, but one of the things that I noticed is that when I asked a senior executive, my boss, actually, and she said that, no, I'm not going to use AI because it makes me dumb. So how would you convince those that think otherwise, that if I'm going to use AI, it's not going to make me smarter, it's just going to make me lazy, and it's not going to make, it's not going to promote creative thinking?
Yeah, I mean, it's tricky. I mean, we feel that with the students extremely, right? Like the example of, hey, write an essay on whatever, where they can just put that in AI and then copy and paste the essay. You know, the whole idea of a written assignment was to give them that practice thinking about the structure of the write-up and the creative thinking about how do I want to express my argument. The AI is doing all of that for them. And if it just stops there, if that's how people use AI, you know, just give me something, I'm going to copy and paste it and whatever, it is making you dumb. You know, it's not, and the trick is to try to teach our students how to work with AI. And that is very difficult. You know, when you see the people that really know how to craft prompts well and then deal with the output and look at it and say, okay, that's sort of what I wanted, but not really what I wanted. I have to go back to my prompt. I have to change whatever. Maybe I have to do a bit of what's called one-shot learning, multiple-shot learning. I don't know if you guys know that, but to get more what I want out of it. So it is true that you need a certain amount, I think, of expertise to work with it really well. And that's what we're trying to teach students, you know, to work with it, engage your critical thought with what it gives you back, see if there's opportunities to make it better with your creative thought. But it does provide this shortcut. And that's our challenge, right? The lazy students, how do you get them to appreciate that the learning is there? You know, that's where you're actually upgrading your skills and doing whatever. And if you take a shortcut to that, you'll get the grade, maybe, but you won't get the actual learning experience. So I understand sort of where like the calculator makes people dumb, you know, etc. And it does. We can't do math nearly as well as we used to before the calculator. And there's going to be things we're not going to be able to do as well. We are going to become dumber. AI is going to do a lot of the basic things for us. Let's do this one analogy. This is an analogy I don't hear people use enough, and I like to throw it out. You guys already see that I'm on the optimistic side of AI. People are on different sides of that. But photography, this is the analogy that I think is most apt. Prior to photography, most people who did painting did portrait painting. The biggest business in the painting business was you hiring a portrait artist to come into your home and to do a portrait of your family, of your whatever. That just took a lot of time. You needed somebody with a lot of expertise, etc., etc. The camera came out. When photography came out, you could accomplish that same goal much more quickly, much more easily, and with much more realism. Did painting die? It didn't. In fact, impressionist painting, abstract painting, people stopped. I don't want to say stop, that's too extreme. But there was a whole lot less painting of reality because photographers can do reality perfectly fine. And so instead, the art form went in a more creative direction. And so that's what I kind of hope is going to happen with us too. I hope we're going to be freed of thinking of some of the stuff that maybe if AI can do it really well, do we need to be able to think that well? And maybe we can use our intellect to do something better, something more interesting, more creative. So I think that's a good optimistic note to shut her down with. Yeah, sorry, a lot more questions. I will be hanging around for a little bit, so if you feel free to grab me if you can.